70% of all Russian oil is bought by China and India. So the way forward, I'm going to Paris and I'm going to Germany after this trip. I'm going to urge our European allies to lower the price cap, to make it harder on Putin's fossil fuel economy, increase OPEC production, and lower the price cap. If Europe will do that, it will matter. It will hurt Russia's war machine. While Europe goes down that road, also level sanctions on China, the Senate will act. We're going back to brief our colleagues. I'll be talking to the majority leader, and he'll be talking to the minority leader, Senator Schumer. We'll have a briefing by Ukrainians next week in the Senate, and we're going to hit head on this idea. Ukraine is not losing this war. That's Russia propaganda. If you look at the map a year ago and look at it today, it's virtually the same.
This is my video update on this Saturday afternoon, May the 31st, coming to you from Limassol, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with a quick military update from Ukraine. A lot of activity happening on the front lines. The Russian forces continue to advance. They continue to capture more towns and villages in the Sumy direction. They're capturing many villages and areas in the Sumy direction. Syrsky, the Ukraine commander, he is saying that the Russian forces have launched an offensive in the Zaporozhye direction, and we are getting reports that Ukraine officials are evacuating 11 villages in Sumy in anticipation for a Russian advance in Sumy, and it does look like Ukraine is creating a defensive line in Sumy. From the ex-account of Yeroman, Sumy border region, Ukraine is evacuating 11 villages in the Sumy region. It looks like a line of defense for the Ukrainian armed forces is planned there, and the ex-account of Yeroman has included a map circling the 11 villages, and it does appear as if the Ukraine armed forces, they are preparing some sort of a defensive line to slow down the Russian advance in that direction. Sumy is not very far from Kiev. Have you seen the movie Arrival? If you've seen the movie Arrival, then that is one of the spaceships from that movie. It is here in Limassol, Cyprus. Actually, that's a famous building called the Oval, famous for Cyprus. For Limassol, it's called the Oval, but it reminds me of the movie Arrival. That's what it reminds me of, the shape of it. The spaceships that arrived onto planet Earth. So what were we saying? What were we talking about? Yeah, defensive lines in Sumy. We're getting reports that the Ukraine military, they are also building up defensive lines in the Zaporozhye, Kherson direction, and that they are expecting the Russians to advance to the point where Ukraine will lose Pokrovsk, they will lose Slavyansk, key towns, key regions in Donbass. And they're expecting the Russians to eventually take these areas, and they're now building extensive fortifications in order to prevent the Russian military from making it further west. So a lot of stuff happening on the front, and this is causing quite a lot of panic in Kiev. It is also causing quite a lot of panic in Washington, D.C. It's causing so much panic in Kiev that the UK is now looking at other options to replace, interesting, huh? To replace the Green Goblin. And one of those options that the UK is looking at, according to the Times, is Klitschko. Klitschko. No more Zelensky. Zelensky, you're out. Klitschko is in. According to the Times, the gloves are off between Zelensky and Mayor Klitschko. The gloves are off. It's Klitschko or Zelensky. Who is going to lead Ukraine in the future? I imagine not all of the UK elite are pulling for Klitschko. I imagine that Zelensky, the Green Goblin, still has a whole lot of support in the UK, but still interesting to see Klitschko's name thrown around there by the Times. Remember that Klitschko is in a kind of an alliance with Poroshenko and Zelensky. They are kind of in a grouping. So I guess Zelensky's gone. Poroshenko's been sidelined by Zelensky, and that leaves just one, Klitschko. Not the sharpest knife in the drawer, Klitschko, but once upon a time, Victoria Nuland was thinking about Klitschko, but she said, Yats is our guy. That is what she told, at the time, Ambassador Pyatt. She also said that Biden is going to wrap it all up. That was when Biden was vice president. Biden's going to wrap it up, seal it up, make it official. Yats is our guy. Klitschko, he was downgraded to mayor of Kiev. So a lot of panic, which has caused Lindsey Graham and his partner, what's that guy's name? Blumenthal? Dick Blumenthal? Lindsey Graham and Senator Dick Blumenthal, they have flown to Kiev. They showed up in Kiev. Is Lindsey Graham ever in South Carolina? He's senator of South Carolina, right? Yeah. Is he ever in South Carolina? It seems like he's spending more time in Kiev, in Ukraine, than he does in his actual home state of South Carolina. So they showed up in Kiev. They met with the Green Goblin. Lindsey Graham admitted that Russia, and this is a quote, Russia is amassing forces at the border with Ukraine for a counteroffensive in summer or fall. I believe tomorrow is the official beginning of the summer, right? June 1st. Summer officially begins. So Graham is worried. Graham is worried that an offensive is coming. And Graham also said, in the same statement that he made in Kiev, he also said that, get this, that Ukraine is not losing this war. He said this is Russian propaganda. So on the one hand, he's worried about a big offensive. He's so worried that he flies with Blumenthal to Kiev to see what is going on. The UK media is talking about replacing Zelensky with Klitschko, all kinds of panic going on. And then Graham says, but don't worry, don't worry, because Ukraine is not losing this war. It's just all propaganda. It's all freaking propaganda, according to Lindsey Graham. And then Graham went on to push, along with Blumenthal. Blumenthal was also there talking smack. He was also talking a whole lot of smack. And they went on to talk about the Trump administration implementing 500% bone-crushing sanctions on any country that trades with Russia. That's you, China. And Lindsey Graham made it a point to single out China. It's also India. Any country that does business with China. That does business with Russia. That's the United States, man. According to Rand Paul, it is fact that the United States gets all kinds of Russian resources For example, uranium, fertilizers. Europe is still getting Russian resources, oil and gas and fertilizer and diesel, all kinds of things that Europe and the United States are getting from Russia. But Lindsey Graham made it a point to single out China in his statement. He said that China, the game you're playing with Russia is about to change. If you keep buying cheap Russian oil to fuel Putin's war machine, there will be 500% tariff on all your products. What do you guys think? Is China worried about these Russian bone-crushing sanctions? Is China worried? I don't think so. I don't think so. Lindsey Graham wants an embargo on the world. He wants an embargo on the world. That's going to work out really well for the United States. That's going to work out really well for American citizens. But what does Graham care? He doesn't care. He has to keep the war going. He has to keep the washing machine spinning. Get this, Blumenthal, he said, Senator Blumenthal, he said that once these bone-crushing sanctions are implemented, then the Russian economy will be in tatters. He didn't say tatters, but that's what he meant. The Russian economy is weak. Putin's war machine is weak. The only thing we need to do is place these 500% sanctions, this embargo, and then it all falls apart. Because according to Blumenthal, and he actually referenced John McCain in this quote, he said, Russia is a gas station with nuclear arms. John McCain said a gas station, a country masquerading as a gas station, or a gas station masquerading as a country. That's what McCain said. He said a gas station masquerading as a country, and all of DC and the Collective West media, they latched on to this statement from McCain. This actually became Collective West policy towards Russia. When he came out with that statement, the entire Collective West foreign policy towards Russia was formed around the premise that it's a gas station masquerading as, hey buddy, so hot that he's hanging out under the car where it's nice and cool. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, their entire foreign policy, their entire approach to Russia was shaped around a gas station masquerading as a country. Am I getting it right? A gas station masquerading as a country, yeah. Anyway, for Blumenthal, it's a gas station with nuclear arms. It's a gas station, but it's got nukes. Fill her up, and fire off some nukes. The gas station. Oh my God, these people. These people. Beautiful church. Alien arrival spaceship. Beautiful church. Alien arrival spaceship. So that's Blumenthal. That's Lindsey Graham in Kiev. Don't be fooled by their tough talk. They are absolutely panicking. That's why they're in Kiev. They are absolutely panicking. So the New York Times, they put out an article with the title, Ukraine accuses Russia of stalling peace negotiations. Both Kiev and Moscow have been maneuvering to set the terms and tempo of any talks to end the fighting. Now, in this New York Times article, they talk a lot about how Russia is stalling because they don't want to give over their draft memorandum to Ukraine or to the United States before the meeting that's going to take place on Monday between Russia and the UK and France and Germany and the United States and, of course, Ukraine. St. George Church. Slaying the dragon, right? St. George. So that's what the New York Times article is focusing on, blaming Russia for stalling because they really want to get a hold of the memorandum, because they would like to get the information in the memorandum. They know that if Russia was to give the memorandum to Ukraine ahead of the meeting, then they would leak it to the media, and then they can start to sabotage the talks, to misrepresent what the memorandum is saying, and all of these things. We know their games, and Russia knows their games. That's why they're not going to give the memorandum to the collective West, to Ukraine, to the United States ahead of the talks on Monday. But anyway, what the New York Times article says, in further down in the article, what they talk about is the Ukraine memorandum. They reveal at what the Ukraine memorandum says. And according to the New York Times, they are saying that Mr. Kellogg, is according to the NYT, Mr. Kellogg said Ukraine's memorandum included 22 terms that he described as pretty good and reasonable, of course, because you wrote them. A senior Ukrainian official, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive negotiations, said the memorandum included provisions for a ceasefire on land, at sea, and in the air, with monitoring to be carried out by international partners. So in these two paragraphs, what the New York Times is basically hinting at, what they're saying is that the Ukraine memorandum that allegedly was given to the United States, according to Kellogg, 3 days ago, and then 2 days ago, it was finally handed over to Russia, is that this memorandum is the Kellogg 22-point plan. That is what this memorandum is. And it's calling for a ceasefire on land, on sea, in the air, stuff that we've talked about on this channel and on the Duran and on Alexander's channel 1,000 times over the past couple of months. And basically what the New York Times is doing is they are confirming my reporting, they're confirming the Duran's reporting, they're confirming Alexander's reporting, where we said that the Ukraine memorandum was not drafted by Ukraine. It was drafted by the United States, by Keith Kellogg. It is nothing more than the 22-point peace plan. And the New York Times is admitting as much. They are calling it they are saying it has 22 terms. It has 22 terms. That's what they're saying. The 22-point peace plan. And of course, Kellogg is telling the New York Times, some of these points are pretty good and reasonable. Well, of course they are, because you wrote them. Yep. All right. Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, he said that Putin is ready to talk with Churchill number 2. That is what Peskov said. He is ready to talk to Zelensky. But in order to sit down with Zelensky, big mistake in my opinion, but unless it's capitulation. If it's capitulation, then yeah, you're going to have to sit with Zelensky. But even if it's capitulation, can you trust that Zelensky's signature would be honored? I don't know. But is it a legitimate signature? Is he the legitimate leader to sign capitulation papers? Anyway, Peskov says that Putin is open to talks with Ukraine, but the Russian president first expects results from direct negotiations between delegations, according to Peskov. So Putin wants results from what's going to go down on Monday. And we might get progress. It's always a possibility. If there is progress and the results are good, then according to this statement from Peskov, he is saying that, interesting park, should we go? Let's check it out. According to Peskov, he is saying that Putin would then be open to meeting with Zelensky. And you know who else would be at that meeting? U.S. President Trump. We'll wait and see what happens on Monday. But remember when I talked about the trilateral meeting between Zelensky, Trump, and Putin? I talked about this in a video 2 days ago. I said that the reason that they're pushing so hard for this trilateral meeting is because it gives legitimacy to Zelensky. You know who agrees with me? You know who agrees with me? Dmitry Medvedev. He posted on Telegram today, either today or yesterday evening, he posted on Telegram that the reason why Zelensky wants a meeting with Putin and Trump, and the reason why the collective West is pushing so hard for a meeting with Trump and Putin for Zelensky, the reason they're pushing for it is because it gives Zelensky legitimacy. And I said this 3 days ago. I believe I did say this 3 days ago. Do I have the article bookmarked where Medvedev says this? Yes, I do. Medvedev suggests reason Zelensky wants three-way Trump-Putin meeting. The Ukrainian leader, whose presidential term expired last year, is trying to legitimize himself, the ex-president has claimed. Exactly. He's trying to legitimize himself in the international sphere. Russia is not going to be able to say that Zelensky's illegitimate if they have a three-way meeting with the President of the United States, an official meeting, a formal setting with the President of the U.S., Putin, Zelensky. They're not going to be able to say anymore that he's illegitimate. It's going to be very difficult for them to say he's illegitimate, because if Russia were to come out and say he's illegitimate, then the entire world is going to say, yeah, but you took a meeting with him, you sat down with him, it was an official meeting, official negotiations. The President of the United States was also present. How can you now say that he's illegitimate? That's not going to fly. And according to Medvedev, which is also something I said in my video 3 days ago, Zelensky wants to show his legitimacy to the people of Ukraine, to the Banderites, to possible opposition, to possible forces, competing forces that are trying to remove him. Klitschko, he's now in some sort of a power struggle, it seems, with Klitschko, according to the UK Times. So Klitschko is going to see Zelensky at the table with Trump and Putin. What's Klitschko going to say? What's he going to do?
Hello.
Hello. Friendly people. Anyway, let's see. All right, so that's Medvedev. By the way, there was a Duma Defense Committee member, Andrei Kartapolov, was speaking to the media, and he is part of the State Duma Defense Committee. And he said that this is the last chance for Kiev, is what he said. He said if Ukraine does not take the deal, if negotiations do not progress to a deal based on root causes Istanbul Plus, then Ukraine will lose Zaporozhye, they will lose Dnipropetrovsk, they will lose Sumy, they will lose Kharkov, they will lose Nikolaev, and they will lose Odessa. This is according to a member of the State Duma Defense Committee. All right. I think we can now shift to Singapore. And there's this Shangrila Defense Security meeting. Something very yellow over there. A very, very yellow building. Let's go check it out. Let's go see what's over there. So it's a pretty big event in Singapore. The Shangrila Security, what's it called? Shangrila Dialogue. It's a security meeting which takes place in Singapore. And everyone's there. All the cool kids are there. All the cool kids from the collective West are there. And Pete Hegseth, he made an appearance, and boy, did he get quite a reaction, Pete Hegseth. Yeah, a lot of people talking about what Pete Hegseth said in his speech. It started off good. Started off with Hegseth talking about how the U.S. is not going to be the policeman of the world anymore. It's not going to interfere in world affairs anymore. He said countries are sovereign and we're not gonna meddle in what's going on with sovereign countries. And he said all of the right things. But then he took a wrong turn at China. Boy, did he take a wrong turn at China. And he basically threatened China. That's what he did. He threatened China, basically saying that China, we're looking at you. We're coming after you. That's what he said, man. That is what he said. Any attempt by the communist Chinese to conquer Taiwan by force will result in devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. The threat that China poses is real, and it could be imminent. President Trump has also said that communist China will not invade Taiwan on his watch. Our goal is to prevent war, to make the cost too high, and peace is the only option. I'm getting all kinds of Project Ukraine vibes from Hegseth's statement. Keep in mind that the United States officially has not changed its policy towards China, its one China policy, or towards Taiwan. So they have not changed that policy at all. But here they are talking about making it too costly for some sort of China invasion of Taiwan. All kinds of Project Ukraine vibes from Hegseth. So China at the UN during a Security Council meeting, I believe for the first time, the Chinese representative came out and said that the United States is responsible for the war in Ukraine. Just came out and said it in his statement. Who's behind the conflict in Ukraine? He said the United States. China knows what's going on. They understand that as Ukraine winds down, as it becomes more and more obvious to the world, including the leaders of the collective West, that Russia is winning this thing and is going to win this thing big, and that the Trump administration, whether they like it or not, they're going to have to pull out of Project Ukraine. Otherwise, the Trump administration is going to suffer a very big L. China understands that they're next. They understand it. In the next year or two, the focus will be on China. Maybe we'll be talking about Project Taiwan. Maybe they'll put together some sort of an Zelensky character in Taiwan as well. Who knows what they're going to cook up. But here we have the Chinese representative at the United Nations just coming out and saying the U.S. is behind it all when it comes to Ukraine, and we're preparing for them to come after us. Trump posted on Truth Social about China as well yesterday, and this has to do with tariffs, the Liberation Day tariff war with China. And Trump posted 2 weeks ago, China was in grave economic danger. By the way, I don't know where Trump is getting this information about China. As I read this, you'll understand what I mean. But here we go. 2 weeks ago, China was in grave economic danger. The very high tariffs I set made it virtually impossible for China to trade into the United States marketplace, which is by far number one in the world. We went, in effect, cold turkey with China, and it was devastating for them. Many factories closed, and there was, to put it mildly, civil unrest. I saw what was happening and didn't like it for them, not for us. I made a fast deal with China in order to save them from what I thought was going to be a very bad situation. And I didn't want to see that happen. Because of this deal, everything quickly stabilized and China got back to business as usual. Everybody was happy. That is the good news. The bad news is that China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with us. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy, and a lot of that is in caps. I have no idea what he's talking about, man. I really don't. Maybe there was civil unrest in China. I don't know. This is news to me, man. This is news to me. I'm going to turn down the volume. All right, so let's turn the volume back up. Blasting music there, so I had to go silent. But what is he talking about, man? Was there civil unrest in China? Is there anyone watching here from China? Is there anyone that has visited China recently or visited China over the past month? Was there civil unrest? Were factories closing? Was China about to collapse? Were we going to see tatters? Tatters in China? Tatters in China? Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise. What's it called? The Final Reckoning? Is that what it's called? The last great movie star, Mr. Tom Cruise. So this is the yellow building, Kiev. Kiev is was a juice company. They used to make, they still do. They make some amazing juices, juice drinks, but now they make so much more. And I believe Kiev is 100% Cypriot, Cyprus company. They make fantastic juices, very, very tasty. I guess this is their headquarters. It does look like the headquarters of a juice company, huh? It really does. Oh, beautiful. Interesting colors. I like it. Yeah, so Trump saved China, just like he saved Putin. Ungrateful Putin, ungrateful China. No more Mr. Nice Guy. No more Mr. Nice Guy. That's right. China was about to collapse and Trump saved them. Putin's playing with fire. Trump saved him. I really don't know what he's talking about. Anyway, the warnings toward China, they don't end with Trump. Little Napoleon recovering from getting slapped by Brigitte. He's touring the region, and I think he's actually in Singapore for the Shangrila event. And he warned China. He said, keep North Korea out of the Ukraine war or risk NATO coming to Asia. That is what Little Napoleon said to China. Let me get his quote here. North Korea in Ukraine is a big question for all of us. If China doesn't want NATO to be involved in Southeast Asia, it should prevent North Korea from being engaged on European soil, Macron said Friday during an address at a major defense summit in Singapore. That's right. Little Napoleon's territory. He doesn't want to see any North Koreans. He doesn't want to see any Chinese. He doesn't want to see anything from Asia on European soil. I think that was a Ferrari, wasn't it? That's the warning from Little Napoleon. It's all European soil, right? All of it is European territory. And if you're going to end up in European territory, well, you better get permission from Emmanuel Macron. And now he is threatening China that NATO's going to expand. NATO's going to expand. If you continue to push this, NATO's going to expand to Asia, which is actually an old concept, to be quite honest. I've been talking about the NATO plans to expand into Asia for 4 years now. I remember Liz Truss called it NATO Blue or something like that. They even had a name for it. NATO going into Asia. So this is an old concept. They've been working on this for a while now. As Ukraine loses, as Russia wins, as NATO is defeated in Europe, with Ukraine defeated, NATO cannot expand any further. It will not be able to expand any further, right? It won't be able to go to Moldova. It will not be able to go to Georgia. It will not be able to go to Armenia. It just will not be able to do this. So what do you do if you're the NATO business and the Putin has closed off a market of expansion to you? What do? You have to expand elsewhere. A new market, a new geography. Asia. That's right. Anyway, that is the warning from Little Napoleon. Let's cross. And we'll make our way towards the beach. And we will make our way towards Clown World territory. Oh, what else? What else? You know the French publication Le Monde? They're talking about the group of four that Macron put together in order to get Trump to go along with sanctions in order to take on Russia. And they're calling it the group of four: Poland, France, the UK, and Germany. I called it 4+1. Le Monde is copying me, man. Le Monde is copying me. I called it 4+1 because I had those four countries along with the United States. So for me, it was the 4+1. Le Monde is calling it the group of four. All right. What else? How are we doing on time, by the way? Yeah, let's wrap this video up. Let's wrap it up. Trump was asked to comment on the slap of Macron. And Trump said, make sure the door remains closed. Which is actually a very smart comment from Trump, because the pilot opened the door when he probably should not have opened the door. Or maybe he wanted to open the door. Maybe he wanted to open the door and embarrass Macron. But either way, if it was intentional or if it was by accident, Trump's point is actually a very good point. Keep the door closed. Keep the door closed if you want to avoid stuff like the slap. The slap heard around the world. And Fico was speaking at, the leader of Slovakia was speaking at the CPAC in Hungary. And he talked about the news that the European Union is going to try and abolish the veto vote in the European Union, at least when it comes to foreign policy decisions. Project Ukraine, when it comes to giving money to Project Ukraine. They're going to abolish the veto vote, which would prevent Slovakia and Hungary from vetoing all the money that they want to send to Churchill #2. And Fico said abolition of the veto right will lead to the end of the European Union and a huge military conflict. Imposing a mandatory political opinion, abolishing the veto right, punishing the sovereign and brave, a new Iron Curtain, preferring war to peace. This is the end of the pan-European project. This is a retreat from democracy. This is a harbinger of a huge military conflict, Fico said. Well, the EU, Europe was never a democracy. So anyway, what else before we get to Clown World? Ukraine defaulted on a $665 million payment for a loan. According to Bloomberg, Ukraine fails to make $665 million sovereign debt payment. But this is not going to lead to a default. Actually, it's not going to lead to a default to Ukraine because, according to Bloomberg, Ukraine and its investors agreed to remove the cross-default clause between its GDP-linked warrants and standard international bonds. This legal adjustment shields the country from a scenario in which a default of one type of instrument would trigger defaults across other debt obligations. So they managed to isolate, I guess, this one loan that Ukraine defaulted on, so it won't cause some sort of a chain reaction and a full-on default for Churchill #2. For Ukraine, when it comes to loaning money, everything is possible, right? Everything is possible. Got to make sure it doesn't default. Let's just unlink all these various loans that we're giving to Ukraine. So if it defaults on one loan, it doesn't carry over to the other loan. When it comes to Ukraine, they will make these kinds of adjustments to make sure that there's no type of system-wide default going on there. Let's do some clown worlds and we will wrap this video up. So Zelensky was at a bookstore yesterday, and he was there with his wife, Zelenskaya, and they picked out a book with the title, To Kill a Tyrant, A History of Tyrannicide from Caesar to Gaddafi. Now, I don't know if they were looking at this book or if they actually purchased this book. Well, you can see in the video that they are looking at this book. So maybe they did end up purchasing this book. And then you have the photo, which is making the rounds on social media from this book fair, which has Zelensky's bodyguards, his security, and it just looks like a bunch of Zelenskys, actually. It looks like a bunch of Zelenskys. They've been cloned. It looks like Zelensky has been cloned like 7, 8 times. Same outfit, same look as Zelensky, same haircut, same everything. They say that this is French. These guys are French, not British, not Ukrainian, not British. But the word on the street is that his security is courtesy of Emmanuel the Slap Macron. That is what they say. Where is Zelensky? It's like a Where's Waldo, isn't it? Where's Zelensky in all of this? He's somewhere in the back. He's in the back. Oh, man. All right. Do I have anything else to talk about this clown world? How about this post from Kaja Kallas? Everything that Kaja Kallas now posts, or everything that she says and does, I'm just going to automatically file it in clown world territory. Even if there's a video of her, I don't know, just getting a coffee. Just getting a coffee. She doesn't say anything. No statements, no comments. I'll still file it away in clown world. But Kaja Kallas put out a post on X saying, with Team Europe at Shangrila Dialogue, strongly united in our support for Ukraine and committed to building global partnerships. Together, we are stronger. She's stunning and she's brave. And they say the same stuff. Ursula, Kallas. It's the same freaking stuff that they post on social media, that they say in speeches. Together, we are stronger. United, we are stronger. Oh boy, Team Europe. Team Europe in Singapore. That's the video, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. And go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. There's a link in the description box down below. Take care.